Kiritsugu Emiya. Kiritsugu Emiya, Emiya Kiritsugu, is the Master of Saber in the Fourth Holy Grail War of Fate/Zero. He is the husband of Irisveil von Einsburn, the father of Iliasveil von Einsburn, and the adoptive father of Shiro Emiya. He is the main protagonist of Fate/Zero and has a minor role in Fate/Stay Night. He was a freelancer and notoriously known as the Magus Killer, Majutsu Shigeroshi. Due to his father, Norikata Emiya, fourth family head of the Emiya family and a Magus who received a sealing designation, Kiritsugu lost his mother shortly after he was born. Father and son were on the run from the Mages Association, and thus Kiritsugu spent his youth wandering around the world with his father. Early years. They settled on Alimango Island for a year. He became friends with, and had a crush on, Noritaka's assistant, a local girl called Shirley who was 4 years older than him. However, disaster struck when Shirley became a vampire after she drank a potion, intending for it to prove that Noritaka's research would save the world. She pled for Kiritsugu to kill her, but he refused and fled. Their village was overrun by executors from the church and enforcers from the association. Both groups had arrived when they heard rumors of a Magus researching into vampirism. Kiritsugu was the only survivor of the cleansing, saved by Natalia Kaminsky, a freelancer and part-time enforcer who wanted information on the Magus responsible. Returning to the hidden Emiya residence, Kiritsugu confronted his father on his research and Shirley's death. Norikata explained that he wanted to become a dead apostle to continue with his research on magecraft longer. In the Fate/Zero novel version, just as Noritaka was planning their escape, Kiritsugu shot him in the back with a pistol. In the animated version, Kiritsugu stabs Norikata with the dagger Kiritsugu received from Shirley and then shot his father, who was highly shocked at his son's betrayal, to death with a pistol that Kiritsugu found in Norikata's drawer. In the end, Natalia figured that the only person who could prevent Noritaka from escaping and ensure his death was his own son, and she wound up taking Kiritsugu with her. Magus Killer. Realizing that the tragedies he saw in his childhood were common occurrences in the world, the teenage Kiritsugu became a freelancer like Natalia to hunt down heretical magi around the world. Natalia trained him not only in magecraft, but in tracking, assassination, and all types of weaponry. At first, he only got in Natalia's way, but he eventually became her partner and equal. During one mission together, they were hunting down the last Scepter head Heinrich Scepter, who was a magus who mastered the revival of dead flesh. After tracking Scepter to an American village called Present Mountain, Kiritsugu and Natalia discovered all 2,000 members of the community were extensions of Scepter's body. They wound up destroying him by throwing a hand grenade into the core of his body. During the last mission together, Natalia was positioned aboard an Airbus A300 jumbo jet in flight in order to track a magus known as the demonic bee user, Odd Borzak. It was said that this magus successfully created dead apostles and could manipulate the demonic ghoul bees under his control to use poisonous stings to increase the number of ghouls under his power. The ghoul bees caused a fatal disturbance in the plane after the death of Borzak and began to infect all the passengers one by one until every single passenger had become a ghoul. Kiritsugu, who was stationed at the plane's destination, elected to shoot down the plane after he deemed the situation too risky to allow the plane to land, sacrificing Natalia in the process. In their last conversation via radio, he admitted that she was like a mother to him. It was then that he became disillusioned with his ideal of becoming a hero of justice, as it was impossible to save one person without losing another. However, he continued to fight for this dream, to ensure that everything he had given up would not be in vain. He was eventually branded as the Magus Killer by the association. Before the Fourth Grail War. Around 11 years before the Fourth Holy Grail War, he took on a younger soldier as his apprentice, who he eventually named Miyahizo, training her in much the same way Natalia trained him. She became his assistant in the field and also his lover, in a purely sexual context. 2 years later, Kiritsugu was hired by the Einsburn family to be their representative in the coming conflict. He entrusted all his equipment, including his Thompson contender, to Miya before leaving. Believing that the Holy Grail could grant his dream for world peace, he left behind his work as a hero of justice. He first met Irisveil von Einsburn in a tank when Jubstachite von Einsburn made her. The drama CD expands on how they met and their initial reaction. Kiritsugu questioned Act as he viewed Irisveil as useless with no survival skills or defense abilities. Act took this personally and threw away Irisveil in the disposal yard during a blizzard as a test to determine her durability. Kiritsugu, disgusted, rushed to save Irisveil and took her back to the old von Einsburn castle. When she recovered, Kiritsugu decided to educate Irisville about the current world with movies, pictures, and music. Gradually Irisville became more eloquent and expressive, and she became interested in Kiritsugu himself. Despite Kiritsugu's initial hesitation, they eventually fell in love. However, Kiritsugu knew that love between the two would be fruitless, as he was aware that he would sacrifice her for the Holy Grail. For Kiritsugu's sake, Irisville wanted to conceive a child so her husband would have hope after the Fourth Grail War. He was thus asked to marry into the Einsburn family. Appearance: he wears a black suit and trench coat. His face is blank and his eyes are vacant. As a boy, his shining eyes and tanned skin make him look cheerful. Personality: Kiritsugu is a brooding and conflicted person. In his youth, he wished to become a hero of justice and protect the weak. He is often haunted by Shirley's question about what he wants to become, and how she believed he alone had the power to change the world. His hesitation to kill his first love when she became a dead apostle resulted in the death of everyone on the island. Kiritsugu, realizing that his father was the cause of this and he would continue his dead apostle experiment, hardened his resolve and killed his father to prevent more deaths. Kiritsugu then resolved to make meaning and worth from the murder of his father. Only by hunting and assassinating all heretic magi like his father could he truly prevent such tragedies from occurring again. He lost all traces of youthful innocence after having spent his life going through countless battles while trying to obtain a utopia that could never be fulfilled, which caused him to become incredibly self-loathing. After learning of the Grail, he sought to use it to create the utopia from his dream. He feels no emotion from personal victories over his targets, seeing them as nothing more than successful taunts with calculated resolutions. In order to pursue his dream, he attempts to distance himself from his emotions, acting as the machine that is Emiya Kiritsugu. He has managed to become completely devoted to any duty without showing any emotional wavering, though he is prone to occasionally fall into moments of extreme emotion and despair. When he admits that he is afraid and terrified of Kirai Kotomine, it is partly because of Kirai's bizarre personality, but also because of the fact that he fears that Kirai might be the one and only person who can kill him. When examining the contender, he begins to wonder if he will remember the touch of his wife and daughter after the Grail War ends and falls into self-derision upon realizing the 8-year-old Ilya weighs less than a rifle. He dislikes such emotions interfering with his work, believing that his interactions with his family have made him more susceptible to sentimentalism in viewing the figures of his own wife and daughter in a passing mother holding her crying child. Kiritsugu tries to hold to the belief that there is no differentiation in sacrifice, that all life is equal and choosing the path leading to a smaller sacrifice is for the best. With a target that must be eliminated to save the world by obtaining the Grail, killing 1,000 people to save at least 5 billion more should be an easy task for him. He finds himself unable to do so when planning to destroy the Hyatt Hotel. He hates the idea of fatal romanticism like the hope that the innocent tenants will be able to escape the hotel in time impeding his abilities. Such ideas and sentiment would kill him on the battlefield, so he feels that he must rid himself of them as much as possible. He has a close connection to Emiya that is older than the one with Irisville, sharing a blood-stained existence not even his wife has ever seen. She acts to help balance his emotions, as she is often even more emotionless than him. Despite being close and having had a sexual relationship for a long duration of time, he shares no romantic feelings for her and attempts to simply regard her as a tool that will eventually die to serve her purpose. Because allowing his wife to sacrifice herself to complete the Grail is a betrayal towards her love, no matter what others say, it is necessary that he does not hesitate in this betrayal. Kiritsugu sees his sexual relationship with Emiya as a rehearsal before this betrayal, a form of self-abuse to steel his nerves while walking down this path. During the last moments of Mia's life, he attempts to calmly tell her that she has nothing to worry about because her tasks are complete, and simply states, "You will die here." He finds himself unable to speak, and instead, he almost finds himself crying for her. She eventually reminds him of his purpose and tells him to save his tears for Irisville, allowing him to finally say, "Emiya, your task is complete." He stopped smoking while with the Einsburn family but takes it up again during the Grail War, partly because he could not find his favorite brand, but mostly out of consideration for his wife and child. He instantly buys a pack out of habit and once again begins smoking as if it hadn't been 10 years. Being a Japanese native, he feels better while in the country despite being used to travel. After rescuing Shiro, he found salvation in his despair. Before his death, he found a glimmer of hope as Shiro inherited his ideals and he believed Shiro would be able to do better than he had. He once told a young Shiro that boys who make a girl cry will end in ruins, something he experienced prior to his death. Overall, while Kiritsugu is a ruthless, conflicted, calculating, stoic, and cold-blooded killer who has committed some villainous acts in order to achieve his goals, he is idealistic and has good intentions, which makes him mostly an anti-hero. Abilities. Kiritsugu, due to the lack of devoted magecraft training under his father or Natalia, is only average as a magus, and instead specializes as a magus killer. He has a number of specialties that would not make him very notable within the Mages Association, but instead make him useful for higher-ups when they need an assassin to kill other heretical magi. Compared to someone like Rin Tosaka, who would have a high numerical value as a magus, Kiritsugu would have a low value as a magus, but a much higher evaluation as a specialist. His relationship with the association is much like how the church treats its executors. His abilities are great enough that even the church considers him to be an individual that requires surveillance. He is noted for many cases of missing persons and accidents believed to be magi he has killed, and many tragedies of the past reported as major acts of terrorism are in reality criminal acts committed by Kiritsugu. While most people who know this believe it is because Kiritsugu doesn't care how many people he kills as long as he kills his target, the truth in these instances is that Kiritsugu was sacrificing people in order to save as many people as possible. For example, the incident of him supposedly blowing up a plane to kill one magus was actually done in order to prevent the insects on the plane from reaching a populated area where they would surely kill many people. After becoming cursed by Ngramenu, he slowly deteriorates over a number of years as his flesh keeps growing weaker, his limbs become atrophied, and he completely loses the ability to use magecraft. He becomes unable to even find the starting point of the bounded field of the Einsburn castle, while the Magus killer would have been able to forcibly break through. He is left to wander in a blizzard without any hope of finding it. Once he fully succumbs to the curse, he dies peacefully. Combat tactics. Kiritsugu is a very unconventional magus, known as a spellcaster, that treats magecraft as a mere tool in which he has acquired knowledge rather than the object of his lifelong goals, and he primarily prefers the use of modern technology supplemented with any little magecraft abilities he has to gain an advantage over enemies. Compared to someone like Tokiomi Tosaka, who refuses to use phones and the like despite their convenience, he freely uses anything at his disposal in order to accomplish his goals. He learned most of his skills from studying Natalia's abilities while also refining his own as her assistant in his pursuit to become a hunter that stops other heretical magi like his father. Much of his ability comes from the fact that he can act cold and ruthless to complete his objectives. After having spent time in retirement with his wife and daughter, he believes he has degraded a great deal compared to the Emiya Kiritsugu from 9 years before. He is no longer as willing or capable of being as ruthless as he once was due to his interactions with them, which he believes he needs to change. He wishes to restore his cold manner of judgment as fast as possible in order to be able to obtain the Grail. He developed his skills working as a sealing designation enforcer for a number of years, learning methods of tracking, assassination, the usage of various weapons, and other skills needed to be able to catch up to his prey under all situations and conditions and bring it down. He sought to have his body master the skill of killing people that humans have spent an endless amount of time and intelligence to research. He is very skilled with using numerous blasting techniques from the past to the present, and he feels a certain appreciation for the certain art of destruction. He uses C4 combined with a precision blasting demolition technique used primarily to demolish tall buildings, allowing him to destroy the Hyatt Hotel with a minimum amount of explosives. With the blueprints and planning, it only takes him an hour to execute the entire plan. Targeting the load-bearing walls and key support structures, it collapses downward and inward on its own weight without much debris spilling onto the surrounding streets and causing unnecessary collateral damage. He is very familiar with the workings of magic circuits and the related temperature changes in the body of the practitioner. Having trained and studied the correlation, he is able to read the current status of the magic circuits through the heat distribution of the practitioner when viewed on the thermal output of a heat-detecting scope. He is able to tell the difference between an ordinary person and a magus, allowing him to seize an opportunity to shoot upon the release of magical energy. Compared to magecraft, which can see through the dark better and detect the position of an enemy magus, it can be said guns fall behind. Its advantage is that it takes no magical energy to use firearms, leaving a magus unsuited to the battle conditions of a soldier trapped in the dark and unable to detect any magical energy. He is extremely skilled in penetrating bounded fields, allowing him to break through the Tosaka residence's strong bounded field in 3 hours. It is an almost miraculous method allowing him to overcome a first-rate security system specifically guarding against magi that wouldn't be broken even if attacked continuously for a whole year by magecraft. Due to it being created with magi in mind, he was able to overcome it precisely because he is someone who does not seek results by way of magecraft and from his experience in fighting against magi by perceiving traps wrought through magecraft. He supplements familiars with miniature CCD camera tied on the abdomen as a measure of recording the true nature of the area. There are often illusions and camouflaged bounded fields based on using suggestions on an observer, but most magi would never develop countermeasures for electronic-based threats. Even though it slows the familiar's speed, it is also useful to have video records to rewatch events at a later time or show them to others. Anti-magi tactics. Kiritsugu has the mindset of a skilled assassin, and rather than facing another magus in a direct duel of abilities, such as in a battle between their mystic codes, he makes use of various plans, traps, and schemes that utilize both magecraft and modern weaponry in order to take out his targets. He preys on the weak point of magi, their negligence derived from arrogance, which makes them believe that the only true threat to them cannot be anything other than a magus of similar skill. He relies on the fact that a self-conscious magus, having stepped into a world of mysteries beyond human intellect, is unable to relate to the stereotypes of a narrower world, such as the conditions of a battlefield or scenarios, the type a regular soldier may face. He follows the methodology that the attack the enemy does not expect is a shortcut for all battles, and preys on the fact that they constantly stay on alert to the slightest trace of magecraft. Magi generally only hone their skills and countermeasures towards thaumaturgical threats, ignoring any attack that is purely physical and void of magecraft. They view the sharpest knives and strongest bullets as secondary menaces they have no need to fear. Before such an attack actually pierces their flesh, they are confident in their illusions, paralysis methods, and defensive bounded fields being more than capable to negate such attacks. They despise technology and underestimate what a human without magecraft can accomplish, which makes them weak to non-magical attacks from Kiritsugu. Though most magi would take the idea of entering the lair of another magus as a challenge, Kiritsugu takes an opposite approach. When faced with the Hyatt Hotel, Kainatha's stronghold, which has been fortified with magical furnaces, spirits, and apparitions, and a large bounded field, Kiritsugu decides to destroy the entire building instead of mounting a direct offensive against the defenses inside. With as much pride Kainath has as a magus, he is willing to stay inside, believing with all certainty that Kiritsugu will invade rather than giving any thought that his entire castle will be destroyed instead. Not only is Kiritsugu able to dispatch most magi with his magecraft-enhanced modern weaponry, but even in some special cases he calls formidable enemies, he is still able to once again follow the methodology that technology is a blind spot to most magi to easily overcome many of them by night vision and a heat sensor scope. Most magi will not deviate from that generality, though there exist those that are impossible to measure with rules and experience. Against those whom Kiritsugu's normal strategies will not prevail against, he must act as a magus and use his mystic code, which is his most powerful weapon. Even facing such an opponent, he is extremely adept at forming strategies and analyzing enemy movements and their magecraft, performing well even under tremendous stress from active combat. Within just one encounter with Kainatha's mystic code, he is able to find 3 weaknesses, form a countermeasure against it, and plan for his final assault. Partners. Kiritsugu is able to work in tandem with multiple parties, but he regards those people simply as tools to further his goals. His relationship with Emiya is that of a pupil and a teacher, but due to viewing magecraft as a tool, there isn't a single sense of master and pupil between them. He has only taught her a way to fight, so that he may also freely use her as a tool. She acts as a vanguard scout, and due to years of working together, they are very in sync with each other's actions. She is a supporting machine, whose actions are even more akin to a machine than those of the machine called Emiya Kiritsugu, and an indispensable final weapon to help him win the battle. Out of all of his teachings, she is most skilled with using bat familiars supplemented with cameras, and she makes use of a Steyr August assault rifle with a replaced night vision scope while still remaining under 5 kilograms. She is more of a soldier than a direct combatant, so he generally trusts her with reconnaissance and scouting due to her skills with familiars, and he allows her to procure all of his equipment. They have exchanged strands of hair between them, which Kiritsugu used as the basis for a spell in order to act as a measure indicating the worst-case scenario in which it has become impossible to use a wireless network or familiar to convey information. The enchanted strands were embedded in the subcutaneous tissue of their pinky fingers with the purpose of sensing if the magic circuits of one of them entered a state of extreme stagnation, the stage at which one's life force was weak on the verge of impasse with death. If the hair embedded in either one of their fingers starts to burn, it is a warning to notify them of the existence of danger, and it really essentially acts only as a signal to inform that it is already too late. He follows the methodology that servants are the tools of their masters, and that no matter how famous the hero, they will be nothing more than that as long as they are summoned as a servant. Despite Saber being one of the most powerful servants of the Saber class, he finds that assassin or caster would suit his style of combat more appropriately. Due to Saber's chivalrous preference for direct confrontations and fair battles, it is hard for him to coordinate with her. He instead has Irisveil pretend to act as Saber's master, while he acts from the shadows. They only speak a few times in total, and are unable to ever agree with each other's methodology. Equipment. Kiritsugu lacks the various ritualistic catalysts used by normal magi like a dagger, cup, talisman, elixir, or spiritual container. He instead uses all state-of-the-art weaponry that are unable to store any magical energy, which is the heresy that earned him his title. He utilizes a large number of different firearms and weapons to kill his targets and is extremely skilled with all those weapons. He also makes use of personal hand grenades, stun grenades, smoke grenades, C2 plastic explosives, and landmines, and he is skilled in incorporating them into traps with trip wires, hidden fuses, and a detonation system using a cell phone to trigger them through modified communication loops. He has number of claymores, which simultaneously release around 700 steel balls with diameters of only 1 or 2 millimeters. They radiate outward in all directions in a fan formation with enough power to destroy an infantry unit in one strike. He is also familiar with setting up surveillance systems, allowing him to use a number of concealed CCD cameras throughout the Einsburn castle. He also has specialized magical equipment, such as an eye drop bottle filled with a liquid made from refining the body fluids of a succubus. It is sensitive to the blood of men and aged things, allowing it to immediately identify such substances. It is capable of comparing substances and distinguish differences accurately, allowing him to compare leftover residue from shaving to a bloodstain to identify both as being left by Tokiomi. Avalon. Avalon, Saber's noble phantasm, is placed in his possession by Act in order to be used as summoning catalyst. Rather than allowing Saber to have it, he hides its existence from her and keeps it for his own use. Normally, it would be used as the trump card of Kiritsugu as Saber's master, but he is not present on the direct battlefield. It is a useless tool to him due to that Saber would not be able to provide it with magical energy since he is working so far apart from her. He leaves it for Irisveil's protection due to her acting as the front-line substitute master for most of the Grail War. Once returned to him, he seals it inside himself as a conceptual weapon and makes use of the contract with Saber to provide the full effects of its immortality. It revives him after his heart and lungs are completely destroyed by completely healing him seconds before his blood-deprived brain is about to die due to lack of oxygen. Even he is surprised with its potency, and decides to work it into his battle strategy to counter the negative effects of innate time control. While it can heal both injuries caused by enemies and damage dealt to himself, it only nullifies the damage without taking away his pain. The state coupled with his innate time control could allow him to defeat a servant under limited conditions. The only ones he could readily defeat would be those who lack physical power like an assassin after having been revealed or a caster in close combat. Defeating those that specialize in hand-to-hand combat would require a special condition in his favor like surprise or suitability against the opponent. Calico M950. The Calico M950, Kairiko M950, is a submachine gun used by Kiritsugu Emiya as a reserve sidearm. It has a compact size similar to a large handgun with a reinforced plastic that makes it look more like a toy when compared to the Walther. It has a unique helical feed magazine that allows for 50 parabellum rounds to be fired at a rate of 700 rounds per minute. It is also equipped with a sound suppressor, laser sight, and vertical foregrip. Thompson Contender. The Thompson Contender, Tanpusen Contenda, also called the Thompson/Center Arms Contender Custom, Tanpusen Senta Amuzu Contenda, is a special piece of equipment compared to his other weapons, which are armaments for the Magus Killer that can simply be bought and replaced at any time. It is something that cannot be bought with money that represents Kiritsugu as a Magus, a mystic code with which he can use magecraft during battle against another Magus. It is a one-of-a-kind weapon only for his use that he has favored on many battlefields. It is used in conjunction with origin bullets, Kigendan, which are special conceptual weapons that utilize Kiritsugu's origin to its fullest extent by actualizing it within a target. The bullets were created from his first and second ribs on both sides being cut off, extracted from his body, ground into dust, condensed with a craft to preserve his soul, and sealed within 66 bullets as their core. The gun and bullets are stored within a rosewood case, which was left within the care of Emiya during his 9 years of retirement. It is 444 mm long and in its base form weighs 1700 g, with his modifications bringing the total weight to 2060 g. Walther Western Australia 2000. The Walther Western Australia 2000, Warusa WA 2000, is a super heavyweight, semi-automatic sniper rifle of the highest class and performance that is the pinnacle of the latest electronic techniques. It costs $12,000 due to only being one of the 176 units produced. It is a rifle with a compact size measuring a little over 90 centimeters in length with the bullpup structure of the gun barrel with a gas-operated magazine measuring at a length of 65 centimeters. It fires a .300 Winchester Magnum cartridge that has an effective range of up to 1,000 meters. While it is not equipped with its standard Schmidt and Bender telescopic sighting device, Kiritsugu has installed a pair of extra-large electronic optic devices as a special scope mount fixed in parallel above the barrel and on the left flank. Magecraft. The Emiya magic crest is carved on Kiritsugu's back, but he was unable to inherit it properly from his father as a normal magus. Due to the sealing designation, Noritaka's body was retained by the association, and all the important parts of the crest were confiscated. Through Natalia's negotiations, Kiritsugu was allowed to inherit part of the crest, but it was only a fragment that contained less than half of the original amount. It was enough that he was able to use his abilities as a magus, but he had little interest in continuing the research in the first place. His only interest was whether it would prove practical as a tool in combat situations. While he relies on modern technology, he is still capable of using various different spells and techniques in his work. He is capable of using night sight by focusing magical energy to his eyes, allowing him to instantly see with impeccable clarity in the dark. He is proficient in using familiars, and he has taught Emiya how to use them as well. He can use basic hypnotic suggestions on those with no natural resistance to magecraft by making the target focus on his eyes. Kiritsugu's elemental affinity is the dual attributes of fire and earth, and as composite attributes, they are linked to his dual origins, severing and binding, Setsudan, to Kitsugo. The previous generation of the Emiya family was at a loss upon finding the nature of his origin, and named him Kiritsugu due to the strange results. Severing and binding is different from the idea of destruction and rebirth. There is no chance of recovery in the case of binding, such as a string being cut and connected back together by tying the two pieces. While it is once again whole, there is forever an irreversible corruption in the form of a change in thickness where the knot it tied. It takes form in his everyday life when doing hands-on work, which caused him to become particularly aware of his origin. While he can fix normal contraptions, he is unskilled in working with delicate machinery. His unskilled hands suddenly cause everything to become the opposite, and the more he wants to fix something, the worse the damage becomes for the machine. He can use handcraft to piece together a snapped metal wire while still restoring the original function, but fixing a delicate electric circuit using the same principles will have fatal results. It is not something that will work as long as everything is connected, and if the connections are out of order, the circuit will lose its function. Rather than being caused by his personality or temperament, it is the true essence of the root deep within his soul. Innate time control. Innate time control, Koyu Jizagio, is Kiritsugu's personal application of the Emiya family's magecraft. They spent generations researching and seeking the magecraft that controls time, eventually reaching time manipulation, which is the ability to separate the passage of time inside a designated space from the flow of time in the outside world. It is classified as greater magecraft in the form of a bounded field that can be regarded as a type of reality marble in a way, but still not something extraordinarily difficult to utilize like other time-related magecraft or something on the level of the true magic that is unable to be replicated. It allows for time adjustment that can only stagnate the time which has passed and accelerate time in the future rather than something more advanced like time modification, which has the ability to reverse cause and effect and change the past. The major problem is that the practitioner needs to consider the size of the bounded field and the scope of time that needs to be modified. It requires a large amount of magical energy and similar rituals in the same magnitude of greater magecraft to activate it. It would normally be applied to a wide area and a long period of time, taking longer to set up and more magical energy to utilize it as the bounded field becomes larger and the deviation in time becomes longer. It is not an ability that can be used on the battlefield where strategies must be quickly made in order to survive, as it must be prepared beforehand and used strategically even after the preparations. The magic crest of the Emiya family contains generations of inherited research, but that is unimportant to Kiritsugu. It was a useless inheritance until he found a way to use it to its maximum potential in a combat situation. He worked around the issue of size and magical energy consumption by creating a flexible method of utilizing it on a small scale that only applies to himself. This allows for the establishment of the reality marble at any given time without the need of extended rituals. It is impossible to completely isolate the flesh from the outside world, but the ability can minimize the effect the outside world has on the body. Keeping the scope of the spell to a minimal bounded field within his own body, it doesn't allow for the world to be affected, but rather allows for Kiritsugu to adjust a few seconds of time within his own body. He uses the chant time alter, Koyoji Sigyo, followed by the degree of speed he wishes to use. The chant excel, Soku, allows him to speed up, while stagnate, Titai, slows him down. He can use release alter, Sigyo Kaijo, to stop it at any point. Time alter, double excel, Koyoji Sigyo Nibai Soku, is his most used version, allowing him to move faster than the human eye can see. It speeds up his blood flow, hemoglobin metabolism, and muscle movement all at the same time. Using this brief burst of speed, he can use his own physical skills and reaction speed at a level far above human limitations. It allows for split-second evasion in front of an enemy, and its power of mobility can make for one of his greatest defenses. Normally double excel is enough to push his body past its limits with brief use, but with Avalon providing regeneration, he is capable of using time alter, triple excel, Koyoji Sigyo Senbai Soku, and the quadruple accelerated time of time alter, square excel, Koyoji Sigyo Yanbai Soku, for an extended period of time. Using stagnate, he can slow his biological processes, and using time alter, triple stagnate, Koyoji Sigyo Sunju Titai, reduces them to 1/3 of their normal speed, slowing his heartbeat to the point where he can barely feel it himself, slowing his breathing so it lags, and reducing his metabolism to the point where body temperature cools quickly enough to almost match room temperature. The sound of his presence is reduced enough that Volumen Hydrargyrum is unable to make out his breathing and heartbeat from the other noises in the natural world, and it is unable to recognize him by using the standards of a human. While there are not any changes within the actual world, his optic nerves and eardrums register what he sees and hears from within the bounded field. His cornea receive 3 times the light a person's eyes normally receive, which makes his field of view extremely bright, and his hearing is dulled. Even with his minimalistic approach, it is still greater magecraft far above the level of basic physical enchantment that causes inconsistencies between the flow of time inside and outside the field. Once the movement is complete and the field is removed, natural forces, the world's own adjustment, will forcefully adjust the incorrect time. This places a large burden on Kiritsugu with each use, as the bounded field where the errors have occurred is within his own physical body. In order to get back in sync with the normal time flow, adjustments occurring within his flesh greatly damage him. Even brief use has him accompanying death, and continuous activation is nothing less than suicide, making it his riskiest technique. When returning to normal from stagnating, he suffers from the blood flow speeding up back to original speed, which causes burst capillaries and internal bleeding. Without the use of Avalon, double excel is his limit when speeding up, and even a few seconds of it is enough to rupture numerous blood vessels and cause fractures in the bones of his limbs due to the burden. Provided with constant regeneration from Avalon, he makes use of the ability's purpose as a strategic weapon to its full potential by utilizing higher levels while enduring his body breaking down and healing at an extremely high rate. He still feels the torn tendons and snapping bones tormenting his nerves while shedding mists of blood with every movement, but the regeneration allows him to keep fighting with accelerated speed for a much longer duration of time. If you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you later, bye bye.